All right, so I'm going to show you guys the next step here, which is to make the end bands before we start putting any of the linings on or anything like that. We want to create end bands. So this is an example of what an end band looks like once it's made. This cord in here is actually jute cord, but I'm going to show you a way to make it using just yarn. This is two pieces twisted together here. And then this is a single strand of yarn. And then this is one that I made. This is what I'm going to show you how to make, which is a yarn that I actually took the threads apart and then retwisted them, because you can see all the different ways that I tried to do this. And again, I'm going to tell you that this is not something you have to do, but it does make your book look more finished. So this is the Inband cut and put on the end to cap the sewing on the book. So it looks nice, but you do not have to do this. You would just see the edges of the paper there, which isn't messy or anything. It's just that it just looks a little nicer. And I would show you this if we were in class together. So I'm going to show it here. And if you're just like, this is too hard, I don't want to do this step, then just don't do it. You can still case your book in and it's not a problem. So if you want to do this, you're going to need glue, and it is messy. And that's why I have this wax paper here. I'm going to make one, but then I'm going to use one of these to do the covering with. So you're also going to need a little strip of book cloth. So you can see this is just a really small piece of book cloth, but we'll get to that. Let's just do this one step at a time. So right now I'm pulling the threads apart, and so that I can retwist them. So I'm just like just separating. And this is like a cotton yarn. This is actually what I use as my tie-up thread for the letterpress when I tie up type. So it's just like a cotton string. But you could also use yarn. You could use embroidery thread. Something that embroidery thread is going to be thin. So you might have to take a few of them and fray them out like this and then retwist them. So I'm going to take, let's see, just maybe a few of these. And I'm just kind of feeling, I don't know if I need to do all of them. Twist them back up. So I've got 4. Let me feel how that feels. So I can kind of like do a little practice twist here and see. So I'm going to do these. I don't know how many I've got here, but I didn't use them all. And I could make another one that would be thinner if I did this one. So I just grabbed some. Maybe I left out 4 to 6 of what I had. And then I'm going to just put some glue on this. And I mean, look, get ready, because you're going to get messy doing this and your hands are going to get gluey. So I'm just squirting some glue onto the yarn, onto the threads. And then I'm going to drag it through my hand and my fingers. So I'm just wiping the glue all over first. And then I can start doing the twisting. So you can see how it works. So I'm just twisting this up, running that glue, letting my hands get gluey. It's kind of fun because it's super messy and it's just like cool, you can do this. And so it's floppy when it's done. And this is why if you have some kind of jute cord, which is like burlap, kind of, I don't know what the fiber is. Could be hemp. That might work. If you had some hemp cord, that's going to be probably stiffer than cotton, but when it's dry, so that's good. How I twisted that up is just kind of a twisted cord. And then I can set this over to the side to dry. So these other ones are dry because I did them yesterday. Sticking out my fingers. Okay. And then I just kind of wipe off my hands. And if you have a cloth, or you can go wash your hands, I'm going to go ahead and just keep working. Just rub my hands together to get that glue off. And then I need a piece of book cloth. So I'm going to off screen grab this cloth that I have sitting ahead. up on my table. So here's my piece of book cloth. That's the cloth side. This is the interior paper side. This is really too big, this piece. And so I know the grain is running long on it, and I want to put my my string in, the one that I'm going to cover. I want it to go with the grain because it's going to be easier to fold it over if it goes with the grain. It's not imperative that you do that though. If you just have a little scrap piece that you want to use and you want to go the opposite way, it'll work, but it might not look as rounded. So this, if you have a piece and you just have a little strip like this, even an offcut that you've used, you don't need that much. You need maybe an inch to do this. So I'm just going to cut this in half, this piece. And I could make more at another time. Let me take this one, and then I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter than my piece of string here, like that. Just so I can see it on each end. And where it kind of tapers down to a point, I probably won't use that. So I'd use the bulk of this, but not all of it. Okay, so then the way you're going to do this is I do need a piece of scrap paper to glue. And then this. I'm going to glue the end. And instead of getting out a brush, sorry, I'm being lazy right now. I'm just going to put some of this glue on the strip and use my finger to do it. Since I'm already gluey and in that mode of working, I'm just going to do it like this. Okay. And I'm just stepping back to wipe my hands off again. I'm going to take this off. And then I'm going to lay this piece of cord in, kind of center it into the glue. And then what I'm going to do, I need my bone folder for this part. I'm going to just walk this over, just kind of bend it over like that. And I'm trying to keep my fingers, because the fingertips have glue on them now. Trying to keep my fingers from this edge, because that's what's going to show. Back here on the inside, which is where I'm bone folding right now, I'm not going to really see this part, so I'm not so worried if there's a little bit of glue there. And you can see what I'm doing is just pushing that cord back with the bone folder with pressure and kind of bone folding this down tight. And that's what it should look like. So you've got your cord in there and you've got that glued. Now the book cloth is gluing and going to dry, and just keep working it down. Make sure it's just as far back as it can go and you don't have any air bubbles, because that will show when you trim it and you don't want that. Okay, so this is a made Inband. There's other ways of doing Inbands that are sewn and different things like that, but we're going to do this. It's just a way to make your book look more finished. And now that has to dry. And when I do the demo today, when I put the linings on, I'll just use the one I already have made. So that just has to dry, probably a couple hours. It'll probably be completely dry. But just make sure if you do this, that you do, see this is still very wet, and I would wait a few hours to make sure it's stiff, like really stiff like this, before you try to cover it. I mean, even this one I think is doable, because that would be closed. It would be wrapped up in there. That would probably work. But I think doing that fraying out first, gluing it, let that completely dry, and then using your book cloth like this. This is a good piece I could get a bunch of books from this, depending on how wide the book is, how thick the book is. But you can see on this one, it's like a 1/2 inch. And so, you know, clipping off a little bit of that Inband is not very much from that big, long, you know, 5-inch, 6-inch strip, you know? So, all right, so that's the Inband.